Christine Persichetti. Hundreds of people have been gathering on Staten Island to protest migrants being moved into makeshift shelters in residential neighborhoods. Just last night, among those in the crowd were Catholics, some of whom say their main concern is for the migrants themselves. Current News' Jessica Easthope was there and has more on the migrant crisis from Midland Beach.
Honks of support ring out on Father Capodanno Boulevard for the second night in a row.
This is your city, it's your tax dollars, and they belong to you.
The crowd energized in its protest against the conversion of the vacant Island Shores senior residences in Midland Beach to the latest of New York City's emergency shelters, housing some of the 60,000 migrants who have settled in the 5 boroughs.
The border is wide open. They're letting anyone and everyone in.
Kathy Dredger's mother lives a few blocks from the new city-run shelter. She says her concern is not why people are coming in, but who they are. But like several others in the crowd, Kathy came to the rally as a concerned resident and a Catholic. She has the corporal works of mercy on her mind, but lately says it's hard to ignore the reports, citing the $12 billion the city plans to spend on caring for migrants.
You want to feed people, you want to clothe people, you want to give them shelter, but to what expense?
15 migrant families are currently being housed in the facility. Barbara Agliero says her concern is with the migrants.
And it's not like it's one big family they moved here. They're from all over the place too. So they don't even know who they're sleeping next to in there.
As more people joined as the sun went down, standing away from the crowd was Juan Eduardo. Juan said he didn't like what he saw coming out of the rally and is instead looking to his faith.
We're all immigrants, we all come from helping each other. So I feel like welcome them. If they're not doing anything bad, yes, welcome them.
As protesters made their voices heard on Staten Island, in Washington, the Biden administration granted temporary protected status for the hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants who have crossed the southern border, allowing them to work legally in the United States. According to city statistics, there are about 15,000 currently living in New York City. On Staten Island, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Mayor Eric Adams spoke earlier today about that TPS announcement. He said the city has been asking for work authorization for the migrants through TPS, and he thanked the Biden administration for hearing their call. Here to talk more about this migrant crisis and the church's response to it is the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, John Lavenberg. Hi, John.
Hi, Christine.
So, John, right now the church is observing National Migration Week, and they want Catholics to reflect on the challenges facing all migrants and refugees. We just heard in Jess's story now that there are a lot of conflicting Catholic opinions on migrants coming to New York City. So what are the bishops saying about it?
Yeah, so earlier this week, the U.S. bishops put out their annual statement on National Migration Week, and there are really 2 things that stuck out. The first is that Catholics are compelled to respond with charity to migrants when they arrive here, and the second is, as a society, we really need to address and look into the reasons that migrants are forced to leave their homes and come here to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mayor Adams did give us some numbers on the migrant crisis. Let's take a closer look at those numbers. There are currently 60,000 migrants in the city. As Jess mentioned, about 15,000 of them are Venezuelans. So that's about 45,000 migrants the city still has to care for, and thousands more keep coming. This really showing that there are issues at the border, and I know you've spoken to officials down there. What do they say are the biggest problems?
Yeah, so the biggest problems at the border aren't that dissimilar to what the biggest problems are here. First is capacity. I mean, they're saying that so many people are coming in that they just need more space to house people, to be able to process people and go through the process. And the second thing is more coordination. The federal government, of course, they're leading the charge on allowing people into the country and vetting people. But beyond that, they want more coordination to help process people when they're already here so they can get to their next destinations and go on.
You also spoke with Catholic leaders in El Paso and some of the organizations that are helping the migrants. What's the situation down there right now?
So in El Paso specifically, they said they're seeing about 1,000 migrants come into the city a day. So that's gotten as high as 1,700 at certain points. And the biggest thing is, again, capacity for them. They're looking into right now opening more space. And again, that coordination, working with local officials and federal officials to really figure out how they can best address this problem, both with humanity and while upholding the border.
All right, hopefully they can figure that out. John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Christine.
So if you want to help the migrants, whether it's getting them legal assistance or donating to a group that's directly helping them, just go to Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens website. That's ccbq.org. Pope Francis will be addressing migration during his short trip to France this weekend. The pontiff is visiting the city of Marseille because of what he's calling the exploitation of migrants around the Mediterranean. Last week alone, 12,000 migrants arrived in Italy from Africa. We will have a reporter traveling with the Pope on Friday. Elise Allen, senior correspondent for Crux, is getting ready for the trip. She joins us now with a preview. Hi, Elise.
Hello, Christine.
So, Elise, the plight of migrants has been a priority of Francis's papacy. The Holy Father's first trip after he was elected Pope 10 years ago was to Lampedusa to show solidarity with migrants. But it seems like nothing's changed when it comes to the crisis. What will the Pope's message be when he speaks at the Mediterranean meetings?
You know, Pope Francis, from the very beginning, very early on in his papacy, sort of rolled out a 4-point action plan when it comes to the migration issue that he said really ought to be the church's guiding attitude on migration. And that is an attitude of welcome, promotion, protection, and integration. He's repeated that over and over again. And I certainly expect that we'll hear something similar, if not the exact same message from him again this weekend.
So will anyone in power actually listen to what the Pope says? I know French President Emmanuel Macron, who's taken a firm stance on migration, will be there. How will the Pope's words enact change?
Well, I think that's the million-dollar question, right? Is will they and how? And I think in this trip, as with many trips that the Pope takes, I think it will be much more his closed-door meetings that will move the needle rather than his public remarks. He will be firm, I'm sure, in repeating and reiterating his position on migration. But those private closed-door meetings that he's going to have with President Macron, as well as a brief one on his day of arrival with the French Prime Minister, will also be an opportunity for him to really dig deeper and, as I said, move the needle a little bit further on those issues.
Okay, the first 2 Mediterranean summits were held in Italy. This year, it's in Marseille. Talk about the significance of holding the meetings in this very multicultural and multi-ethnic city, if you can, quickly.
Sure, like you said, it's a very big melting pot of people from different cultural and religious backgrounds. So I think that gives the meeting huge symbolism in terms of not only setting the tone, but also giving the Pope a much more symbolic platform from which to launch his own message.
All right, Elise Allen, senior correspondent for Crux. We'll check back in with you tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Elise will be traveling with the Pope all weekend. Keep up with her exclusive coverage on thetablet.org. And that is this Currents News Update. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.